Hello and welcome to On Air. I'm your host, Klara Syrewicz. In this program, we give you an in-depth analysis of the news, showing you the stories behind the stories. Later on, we will look at how politicians across the globe maneuver to put their own children in power. That's the topic of our report. What are this week's top stories? You'll probably say the US presidential debate and Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala Harris. Nah, that's so boring. Let's look at something really nail-bitingly gripping. The European Commission nomination process. I'm serious. It's far more exciting than it seems. And why that is? First, because it's the European government we're talking about, and it will remain in power for the next 5 years, facing unprecedented challenges. So it better be good. Beside that, Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, wants her team gender balanced, which is not a radical thought for 2024, but here we are. Von der Leyen herself has surprisingly often been at the receiving end of everyday sexism. In a 2021 meeting with Recep Tayyip Erdogan, she was denied a chair and had to sit on a sofa while her equal, the male president of the European Council, sat opposite Turkey's president. And that was not the last occurrence, despite her being the most powerful player in the room. Let me take a minute to say I'm a bit of a sucker for von der Leyen, because you have to give it to the woman. She is quite amazing. This is her second term as what amounts to being president of the European Union. She has dealt with the pandemic, an ongoing migration crisis, and Russian aggression in Ukraine. She speaks 3 languages fluently. She's a doctor of medicine, an economist. She even has 7 children. And to top it up, she is a semi-professional equestrian. But back to the commissioners. So far, out of 27, there are 9 women, not counting von der Leyen herself. The whole nomination process has been fraught, with many member states rebelling against von der Leyen's call. But this is not the end game for the president, because all commissioners need to be approved by the European Parliament, and she commands considerable influence there. Each candidate will face a 4-hour grilling. Typically, at least one commissioner fails the test. It's a bit like the European Union Hunger Games. So are you getting a little bit excited yet? The weakest link is already known. It's Hungarian Commissioner Olivér Várhelyi, nominated by Viktor Orbán. He has served as Enlargement Commissioner with very dismal results and a reputation for overriding democratic procedures, but also for being rude and aggressive to staffers and for acting as a de facto Orbán representative. Oh, and also last year he actually called European MPs idiots. A hot mic in the parliament caught him mumbling under his breath. Another potential target is Greece's Apostolos Tzitzikostas, accused of being on very friendly terms with the neo-Nazi Golden Dawn party. In any case, von der Leyen might get the last laugh, as parliamentary insiders told Politico, men should fear more than women. The weak male candidates will have a hard time in the European Parliament. Speaking of neo-Nazis, last week we talked about German local elections in which 2 extremist parties won substantial support. Those parties' programs can be summed up as being Russia's psychotic fandom. And we suggested that these elections would have repercussions on the federal level. But frankly, we didn't anticipate that their effect would be so rapid. By September 9th, Olaf Scholz was already saying that
I believe that now is the time to discuss how we can get out of this war situation and towards peace more quickly than it currently seems.
This panicky approach is not entirely surprising, considering a leaked German budget memo revealing that aid to Ukraine will be difficult to provide, and because it's budget week at the Bundestag, and there will be a lot of conflict around how to close some gaping holes, the easy answer is, of course, to stop helping Ukraine. It's also not surprising that German lawmakers are getting weak at the knees. During their recent joint statement, MI6 boss Richard Moore and CIA chief Bill Burns underlined the reckless campaign of sabotage across Europe by Russia. and it seems that its most extreme measures have been deployed in Germany. It's not just some petty criminals setting fire to railway cables. I mean, Russia just tried to kill the CEO of the leading German arms manufacturer Rheinmetall in retaliation for supporting Ukraine. In September, Russia's military intelligence, the GRU, hacked Germany's air traffic control system and made out with data on its workers and its digital framework. It's the air traffic control system, think about it. There's been eavesdropping on crucial military communications. There's been repeated drone overflights of some of the most sensitive NATO and German army bases. And that has prompted the Bundeswehr to quickly acquire Swiss anti-drone equipment. And I'm actually quite alarmed they didn't have it before. There have been many cases of arson, including packages with self-igniting mechanisms, so really sophisticated and aggressive moves. And that's not to mention the hybrid tactics of instrumentalized migration and the good old reinforcing of anti-immigrant sentiment through disinformation. Because if those issues are high on the agenda, which they are, then the two toxic Russia fandom parties will gain leverage. I'm sorry to be stuck on Germany yet again, but it's, how should I put this, a big country, an important country. We'd better pay close attention to what is happening there. So let's move on to something more entertaining. Dynasties. Wave goodbye to meritocracy, because here comes the future political generation. More on that in our report.
There's something cringeworthy about children of despots being groomed to inherit their dad's country. In more democratic regimes, the feeling verges on reprehension when a powerful politician carves out a cushy but powerful position for their offspring. A mix of disbelief, outrage, hopeless laughter and disheartenment come up whenever we hear about nepo-babies. Let's begin with the Kims, where nepotism runs deep and seems genetically inherited, along with the rosy and full cheeks of the well-fed dictators-to-be. Here's North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un making a splash at a massive New Year rally in Pyongyang. The supreme butterball is accompanied by the fruit of his loins, then 11 years old, A. A moment of relaxation watching the fireworks and thousands of their subjects bounce is well merited. After all, 2023 was a busy year for both of them. A watched her dad oversee a majestic display of North Korea's artillery might in March 2023. Was by her pop's side when he greenlighted the launch of North Korea's first spy satellite. Walked past the Navy Guard of Honor as Dad shook hands with gallant senior officers. And watched him wag his finger at the White House when visiting the General Missile Bureau, which participated in the launch of her country's most powerful intercontinental ballistic missile, Hwasong-18. Experts remain divided on whether Jong-un tutors his daughter in leadership. On the one hand, Jong-un has forbidden North Koreans to name their newborns A. He could also be using his daughter as a counterweight for the very ambitious Kim Yo-jong. And now we're opening the Sons of Putin's cronies section, starting with Ramzan Kadyrov's unlikely successor, Adam. His marksmanship was praised by none other than Vladimir Putin. Aged only 16, Adam's experience and sagacity have convinced his father to appoint him as supervisor of a Chechen Special Forces training school in Gudarems. The appointment follows Adam's descent into notoriety last year when he battered a Russian teenager who had been arrested for burning a Quran. This is the kind of leader Chechnya is set to get if old Kadyrov, reportedly ill at health, kicks the bucket. Moving on to Belarus, where Alexander Lukashenko is rearing his golden boy, Nikolai. Lukashenko's son is his third in order, but first in succession to the throne of Russia's puppet state. Kolar has appeared in public on the side of his father ever more often since 2015, when he took part in a session of the United Nations General Assembly and was seen at a World War II parade in Minsk. He has taken after his father in height, towering at over 190 centimetres. What traits he's inherited from his mother is a matter of debate, as is his mother's identity. But unlike his father, he enjoys an international education, reportedly studying at Peking University in China. It's easy to make fun of dictators' nepo-babies, but the West has a few of its own. Jared Kushner had become one long before he realised his fate. Hailing from the Kushner family, Jared entered a dynastic marriage with Ivanka Trump. Both families famously amassed their wealth in the real estate business. Following the swearing-in of his father-in-law, Jared was appointed senior advisor to the US president.
America will never be a socialist country.
Jared's wife Ivanka enjoyed her fair share of nepotism too. When Donald Trump moved into the White House, she was made his chief of staff, not to mention daddy's advisor. And if one Donald Trump wasn't enough...
Good evening, America. I'm Donald Trump Jr.
Donald Trump's eldest son serves as a trustee and executive vice president of the Trump Organization, running the company alongside his younger brother Eric. During his father's campaign for the presidency, Donald Jr. became notorious for cooperating with Russia in their interference in the 2016 United States elections, and for meeting with a Russian lawyer who promised to deliver dirt on the Clinton campaign. During Donald's presidency, Jr. and Eric continued to do deals and investments in foreign countries, as well as collect payments on their US properties from foreign governments, despite a pledge that they would not do so. And to wrap up this nepo-baby showcase, let's move to Thailand, where 37-year-old Paetongtarn Shinawatra has followed in her father's footsteps, becoming the country's 31st Prime Minister and the second woman in history to hold the position. Being the youngest Prime Minister in Thailand's history, Paetongtarn faces the challenges of leading the country out of an economic crisis, restructuring debt, protecting small and mid-sized enterprises from competition from overseas, and more.
And welcome back. We have John Todd with us in the studio, and we are going to talk about nepo-babies. Hello, John. So Ursula von der Leyen, she has 7 children. So if she were to appoint them commissioners, she would have a big choice, a bit like Kadyrov, actually.
Well, I'm going to say 7 sounds like a lot to me, but I think Kadyrov's going to beat her. So the reports indicate that he's got 10 kids, and some people suggest more. But when the US sanctioned him last year, they sanctioned him, his wife, 2 eldest kids. He said he's got 12 more. So we're looking, I think 14's a decent bet, but we're not sure. I mean, he's actually looking quite robust there, but Nova Gazeta recently reported they investigated suggestions that he's unwell. And
he's quite pudgy, but
I think he's
rosy
looking.
cheeks.
I think he's looking stout there. He doesn't look unwell, but the suggestion is the investigation concluded that he may well be suffering from some terminal pancreatic condition.
So succession problems.
Yeah. He went on to social media to say, "Look, my doctors have told me I've got the body of a young man." I'm saying, look, what else are you going to tell an angry warlord? Of course they're going to say that. Succession now comes into play here. He's got a load of kids. A number of them are already in office. So we've got 18-year-old Akmat, who was initially a deputy minister, but he's now a full minister of physical culture and sport.
18-year-old minister. Oh, that's great.
Come on, if you can do it, go on.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure he has the experience.
Yeah, well, I find he's got a 16-year-old Adam who's got his own interesting story. I mean, he's now the curator of a couple of military battalions, a sort of leadership role, even though he's only a minor. But he really hit the headlines last year when he beat up a Russian prisoner for allegedly setting fire to the Koran. And what did Kadyrov do? What any proud dictator dad would. He posted a clip of the attack online.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. And off the back of that, he now heads up his dad's security unit. So he's done well out of that.
Sure, at 16,
Yeah. I mean, there are 2 sisters in the mix as well. One headed up Russia's COP28 mission in Dubai. But also, every family's got a waster. And then now he's got a second son who styles himself as a competitive fighter, tears around the country in high-end cars. So maybe he's ready for a government role as well now.
Yeah, no, I mean, sure. He can drive his dad, and maybe, then he will surely die young.
Yeah. I'm going to say in conclusion that really there was a report out in May that's suggesting that the family's got its hands on the government there. Out of the 23 top government roles in the country, his kids or their spouses have got their hands on 6, and their immediate family have got their hands on another 5 roles. So nearly half the top jobs in the country.
So that's very mafia style indeed. But you know, I mean, we have come to expect these kinds of dynastic mishmashes, you know, in obviously in dictatorial settings. But it becomes really alarming when it concerns democracies, or at least near democracies. And I think there's quite many of them in Asia in this situation.
Yeah, we saw in the report there, we've got Uzbekistan, Belarus, Chechnya, also the US and Canada. I mean, we've had the Bushes, we've got
Canada, of
Pierre
course.
Trudeau. Justin's in there still, but it's in Asia where family really matters. And I'm thinking we've got Cambodia, Bangladesh, Philippines. In Pakistan and Bangladesh, this really came around because of land ownership. That plays a big part in it. In India, blame the Brits because the dynasties are part of the sort of post-independence political elites. But I want to look at North Korea. North Koreans have only known 3 generations of one family. We've heard a little bit about Kim Jong-un, who's trying to secure his succession, but his sister Kim Yo-young is waiting in the wings there.
So actually, let's move on to maybe the something closer to home and look at the US, because especially in the context of a looming maybe another Trump administration, and the Trump administration was where we had the most blatant examples of nepotism. Right, so...
Yeah, well, I think we're looking at Javanka, really.
Oh, yes, there we go.
In Michael Wolff's account of the Trump White House, he suggests that the two of them came to an agreement in which Jared Kushner would step aside should his wife, Ivanka, be given the opportunity to run as a future first female president. But...
she won't be the first now.
Well, I'm going to say Kamala Harris is giving Trump dad a hard run. What we've got here is, what is Javanka? What did it mean? You really got to look at their legacy. I think some would say it's a Republican dream.
Oh yeah,
rushing around, the picture postcard couple rushing around the world, putting the countries to rights. But some might say they were a pair of entitled brats on the make. I think looking at it really depends on who you ask. Steve Bannon said that all the bad decisions came from Javanka in the White House. He wasn't a fan.
You have to take into account that Steve Bannon is in prison now, so maybe his decisions weren't exactly great either. But, because a lot of people actually said that Jared Kushner did a good job in bringing Israel and the Arab countries to the negotiation table, because he was close to MBS, and, he actually made the Abraham Accords happen. So... the legacy might be mitigated a bit.
There may be some legacy, but we've yet to see. Obviously, Iran's a terrible threat now. Look what it's doing to its involvement in the Russian war in Ukraine. So, obviously, he was partly involved in this. So I don't think it's. We're not going to resolve this just now.
Obviously, yes.
I'm going to leave it with Ivanka actually gave her evidence in the Capitol riots, and she at the time partly abandoned her father because she suggested actually that the election hadn't been stolen from her dad. And Trump responded by saying Ivanka had checked out, presumably, of the team.
Oh, well. Thank you, John. That's it for today. And thank you for watching. Next week, we will actually tackle more family corruption, because we will have a report on Viktor Orban. So join us next week, and thank you for now.